I I haven't blogged for quite a long time. A lot has happened. Of course, the riots, protests, are the big thing that's taken place since COVID-19, and of course the glaring injustices of people's approach to this whole thing. Imbalance and injustice is been so obvious and been so clear. You know, the Black Lives Matter and the amount of people that jumped on the bandwagon in America, where they've got videos of these white kids going absolutely bos before, doubling down, trying to outdo their mates, their newfound BLM mates. And then you compare this reaction to George Floyd, who was killed by a police officer. Well, not, that's in question, killed by a police officer, but it looked very bad. I mean, it's absolutely was very unnecessary and, very bad look, the optics of this whole thing. But, still, we are people, and the outrage, of course. If you look in South Africa, how the Megan Creamer and Hannah Cornelius murders were painted up. They didn't go White Lives Matter. It was all, gender violence and all this type of thing. Of course, it becomes a generic thing, and the average, university student and the intelligentsia feminist of the country jumped onto the bandwagon about this whole thing, painting it into the gender violence thing as a generic kind of word, not just, and you can't help but start to feel like a bit of a mug after a while as a white man, where you see how quickly these groups jump onto any other cause and will paint it up in any way possible to make it look like, basically villainize the heroes and victimize the villains. No way was it clearer to me than the response of your students' class, especially from South Africa with the Megan Creamer and Hannah Cornelius, because that should have been a White Lives Matter issue, actually. But no, we could never have that now, could we? They had to stick it to, the patriarchy or whatever they see us as, which most of us are not even fathers anyway, because they haven't even kind of provided that kind of role as from the feminist side. So they've left the men as basically, I don't know what you would call them. They're definitely not patriarchal. We're much more of a matriarchal society, actually, with them jumping up and down about Hillary Clinton trying to become president and, women CEOs in companies, etc., etc. So, the levels of pressure that build up in one's mind over these things is notable because of the stark injustices of how people look at these things and what they'll get passionate about and what they won't get passionate about. Megan Creamer and Hannah Cornelius, absolutely, tragic and extreme injustices. And that was a White Lives Matter incident of the highest order. I mean, Hannah Cornelius, destroyed a family, and I'm sure for Megan Kramer as well. Her mom kind of just seems to have walked into the sea and just never come back. The optics of that, to me, seem like much more global riot worthy than George Floyd, robber. I've heard he was convicted robber, put a gun to a woman's stomach who was pregnant. Drug addict. It was high on something at the very time of his arrest, which is probably what actually did cause the death. You're at a loss for words actually when you actually add it up, and it is something that can be added up. Everything is. As the left love to add things up in their own little unbalanced scales that they use, and the university class seem to just absolutely love this. But it doesn't surprise me, especially in London. I mean, I've seen the university campus I used to cycle past every day, Queen Mary University in London. Man, I mean, if ever that was a leftist, just looking at the people on the campus, Plus, I knew one or two that are, 45-year-olds studying endlessly. It's another thing, this professional student. And they're extremely, how can I say, kind of new age values. They're all vegan and this, that, and the other. Gender neutral and those kinds of things, but they will not hesitate to use violence in a BLM, and this is the white students I'm talking about, Black Lives Matter protest, of which I did have a little sneak peek at. I was actually riding past a lot of them arriving at the thing, walking towards this thing, and I just thought, here comes trouble. Of course it's organized. You can see it's organized. I would never engage these people in a discussion because it's kind of like absolutely fruitless, pointless. They're filled with hate. There's no point. Anyway, they were still gathering. They were still arriving in dribs and drabs. And as it turned out, the worst behaviors came out. Throwing bikes, heavy steel bikes at horses, pelting them with all sorts of things. It looked like a brick. One of them was pelted with on the nose. The poor horse reeled back. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. and that's how that carries on. With regards to the kind of election that's coming up, the Trump election, and all this talk about but they're gonna make the Trump election, they're gonna rig the Trump election. Does it actually matter? Considering what they can actually do with Trump in power, with our vote for Brexit, with our absolute vehement opposition in voting in every way possible, and the oligarchs, the billionaire pedophiles, and billionaire philanthropist pedophiles have just run roughshod right over us. So does it really matter? I mean, does it actually matter? Trump or Hillary or Biden or maybe they'll take the foot off the gas a little bit, and then the right can actually start to wake up and realize that none of us, the things that Trump has been doing were serving us anyway. The internet we still have our accounts taken away from us. He made some kind of law, much too late. The Americans that wanted their wall built, which actually symbolizes that they want the immigration to stop. And I've heard the reports that in sometimes it's been doubled down on. I mean, it absolutely does not matter. We're getting pushed way back here. We see this thing coming at us like a steamroller, and you're standing there like a deer in headlights for a steamroller, which is something which you could take evasive action quite easily for. But this thing is coming at us, and they're not going to stop. The vaccine thing too. I don't see them. I've not once seen anything that came out on the news and was reported as mainstream news where they actually backtracked on. Not one, not ever. The Trump impeachment, they pushed right through to the absolute fucking limit on that one. The non-stop Trump hatred, the non-stop lying and the build-up to his election, they did not back down one iota, which is what you've got to learn from these people. And I'd like to know what people on the Christian side, what is the strategy? What is your strategy? When they say, well, they start winding up the screws on this vaccine insistence and track and trace, apps where they can basically, and even a marking system of some kind of, apparently, I've heard this, that it's just like a plaster that they put on and take it off. And that's it, and you're marked forever. So, would you accept that, or would you not accept that, is the question. Obviously, the answer has to be that you would not accept that. But are we just going to watch them keep pushing and keep making things more and more of a nightmare? Or are we actually going to respond and take some shortcuts? Because clearly the kind of political avenues and so on are getting blocked and have been blocked and have not even produced one ounce of fruit for us. They've just produced misery. Since Trump has been there, since the Brexit, they've just absolutely ramped up the stress levels for everybody involved. Played mind games, they fucked with everybody's heads. And then not only that, they doubled down and come out with this COVID-19, it's a fucking winner. That's an absolute winner. I mean, the lying levels on that is just, I don't even want to go into it. And the validity of whether you should shut down globally on something like that, and how that is even possible, is also something to bring into question. And the oligarchs are what, for me, it's nothing. Don't look any further than the oligarchs. The Chinese government is nothing but a puppet regime, just like South African government. Trump on the surface of it was meant to be opposition. Clearly, I think even if he was really, really doing things for us, they would kick up such a fuss. There's just so many people in the key positions that are diehard. They are absolutely diehard, fanatics of the leftist regime in positions in the deep state that as they call it, billionaire pedophile kind of funded and rule. Does it actually matter? Will they get, even if Trump did win, it's going to be, hell. They're going to make it into just absolute hell. Of course, the option on the voting table when the voting cards come out is that is the only option. Is to vote for Trump. And Biden is just an absolute creep of note. Plus, doesn't seem to be able to string a coherent sentence together, from what I hear. The sound bites and the things that he's saying. I mean, unless that's all the trick, and he's going to come out and absolutely shock everybody, which might be a pleasant surprise if, showing that maybe you have got some, some kind of normal human intelligence going on. There's very strange kind of responses, and a lot more people are globally woken up, and I'm not just talking about right-wing people. There's Jamaicans, there's a lot of people, and Africans, some of the Africans that are here. They'll a lot more weight to things than what you think. If this idea of them just all turning on us, and just like that, that's not going to happen that way. The ones that turn on us are paid for terrorists. That'll be guaranteed. People that will attack someone in the street or do something, or like those rioters that were throwing things at the horses, BLM crap and Antifa crap that were out there abusing animals, seriously abusing animals. And I don't think that really got into the mainstream news. I don't know. Maybe somebody could tell me if it did. But so I'm of the mind that we need a shortcut, and somebody who can directly get to these billionaire philanthropists. Because it seems that Trump's not doing it. The person the institutions that should be arresting these, they're terrorists. I mean, what's been done to the world is basically a terrorist attack with this COVID-19. Never mind even the George Floyd crap. It's worse than September 11 by a long way. The trauma, the intense damage they've done to people's mental well-being, their businesses, and with the media just totally ignoring that aspect and acting like, oh, we're all in this together, and not really, reporting on what's going on with the man in the street, for fear that they're going to say all the things that I'm saying, and probably far more intelligently, because some of these business guys, when they get their minds into gear, believe me, the government will wish they hadn't even fucking gone down this road. The time for being, only focusing on political avenues is a little bit naive. In fact, it's very fucking naive, because you can see so clearly the ridiculous levels that they will go to. And when it gets so childish, it's kind of obvious what you have to do. It's kind of obvious. Some stringent actions need to be taken. Well, why is it so impossible to arrest George Soros? And Trump hasn't even mentioned that, not even a peep. How is it possible that they don't just apprehend these people? And even Bill Gates, coming with this prophecy 2 years, 3, 4 years ago, next problem in the world will be a pandemic. And then this pandemic that very creepily mimics a Hollywood film. They actually kind of want us to know, I think, that, hey, ek is die baas. And they're playing that kind of game. It's like we're kind of in dialogue, when they're showing us, you think you're in charge. Well, maybe you're not in charge. They're fucking with everybody's head. And this is when you need to take shortcuts. When you realize that they're expecting you to run on a foot race against guys on TT motorcycles, in this that have billions or trillions at their disposal, or as much money as they can invent. I think China's fucking overrated. I've seen their aircraft and all their military stuff. It's basically fluffed up Russian stuff. All of their technology that they've ever gotten was actually Western technology originally. The power that they are wielding is from these oligarchs. And I think that Wuhan Kung Flu, when it started there, it looked so bloody pathetic. I mean, one guy is mate of mine at work, Eastern European guy, he said he was laughing when he saw it. He thought it was so ridiculous. But and then he says, and then it's London, like happening in London, and they're doing the same thing. They're like locking us down. And nobody finds that funny and strange and alarming. Not enough people anyway. Civil disobedience could have taken place there and then, and if there were going to ever be protest, it should have been for this lockdown and absolute garbage, taking away our rights. Same as if there was ever going to be a protest, it should have been White Lives Matter for Hannah Cornelius and Megan Creamer. And that could have been global. Because if this shitbag in America was global, why not those two girls in South Africa? If that was what outraged all these pathetic individuals. Anyway, that's my words for today. I'll catch you again.